Okay, folks, welcome back. Friday evening edition. Okay, so we're going to hit the ground running and work on what we left off, which was the turret numerals of the second Panther layer. So we already did the red on this one. Obviously, they're going to have some weathering over it, black lining, all kinds of stuff that we're going to do on that tank to make all those details pop. And it just got too late to do this yesterday. So, yeah. And we got to put the German crosses here on the front of this superstructure. I'm going to go ahead and paint them. I don't really want to use a decal and end up having to microsaw the living hell out of it because it is a very uneven surface, and painting will do fine. And what else? I guess that's about it. Let's get some red out here. Thank you. I do my own stunts. I went ahead and took my contacts out. I'm blind as shit. I'm nearsighted as shit. Let's put it that way. And we'll just set this down here in case I need to use that to search for anything. And we'll see if anybody comes on or I get bored to tears and have to disconnect. Because I fell asleep. Now, we're still going to be on tomorrow morning, and Sunday morning. However, next week, I will be on neither one of those two. I've got to go out of town for our biannual convention, warmaking? Yes, the warmaking convention. Wargaming convention in outskirts of Orlando. So I will be taking my first day off of the year, first vacation day off of the year, and going to that. Which I haven't missed one since 2001, unless it was canceled or there was talk of guilting people into wearing masks when you didn't need to. Didn't go to that one either. Okay. And this is pretty dark. We're going to build that up. All right, we're going to flip to the other side. guess we're going to paint a new Panzer crewman for the tank commander here at some point. And let's add some more red to it. Flip back to the other side. I was watching an airbrush video the other day. I forget who it was, and they were talking about this person. All they did was thin with distilled water. So, it's like maybe I could use distilled water for this, but I got pretty soft water. I don't think things make that much of a difference. The water quality here is pretty good compared to the city where I used to live. I was just too tired to continue on this project last night and do this particular tank. Let me switch this to live chat. Okay, go back to this side and let's go the full red. Full on red. Flip back to the other side. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and rinse this thing out. I'm going to dump this, so I'm going to have clear water, and then we're going to do the white around that number. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and get a soda. I'll be right back. And then at some point this weekend, I'm going to have to make some stands for these Panthers and these other vehicles. Actually, I went to Hobby Lobby to get more of this material. This evergreen basing material. They didn't have any. So once again, another sale lost from a brick and mortar store to Amazon. So I think I got four packages of it coming. It's only one sheet on each package, but I'm like, we can't run out of this stuff. So we definitely need it for the bigger vehicles, like the Panthers. They're on the white ones. The shims that I have left over, they're not big enough to really have the be able to have the Panthers or these King Tigers or anything of that size really to fit on there. The KVs don't fit on there either. So first world problems. All right, we're going to use pure white. And we're just going to put a small border around this number. And we get one drop of flow aid in case this starts acting non-smooth. All right. It's looking better than the one from last night. No, they're all hand painted, so in real life and quite sloppy. when you're doing these lines, at least for me, to make them neat, the easiest motion is to go from one point and pull down on it. Not go across, just pulling down. And sometimes I don't do it. Sometimes I forget and I kind of get on a tear. It's not a big deal, but as a general rule, pulling towards yourself, you get I get the smoothest. That may not work for other people. I'm pretty sure that pushing up doesn't work for anyone. Pulling down on it results in the most neat, fine lines. I'm pretty sure pushing up doesn't work for anybody with a paintbrush. Bristles would go haywire with that. Okay, we're going to flip to the other side. Anybody here, or I'm just being ignored? Mr. Jared, welcome. You're silently watching. Yeah. Happy Australian morning to you. I posted a lot of pictures lately online, and I'm telling you, you get so much more response posting German vehicles than you do anything else. I could post all the Shermans in the world. People don't get excited as they do about German vehicles. But you know, the Germans have to have somebody to fight, so This week started with I don't dread going into work today on a Monday, and then like now I'm like, oh, let me get me out of here. Today was extremely challenging. Extremely challenging. Just interruptions galore. Drowning in emails. Get an email to solve a problem. Then while you're trying to figure that one out, you get two other emails about the same kind of stuff. And it was hot as shit today too. I swear it was probably 92. All right, then we'll pull this one towards us on the top of this red one. I got home relatively early and went ahead and did probably about an hour or so of World of Warships. Might as well do it earlier than later because nobody's on, at 5:30 in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time generally. Just something to do. Something to see the pretty boats and chug around in and spend no money on. I don't play those. I don't play those free to play games and spend money on it. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay, we got kind of a little gap that's there. Let's see if we can close that up with this white. Yep. And let's go back to this side. And yep. All right, then we'll come back to the red. what I was saying earlier when nobody was on was that I'll be on tomorrow morning and Sunday, but next weekend a no-go. Next weekend I'm out of town for our biannual war game convention on the outskirts of Orlando. From Friday until Sunday. And somebody was asking me the other day, so what do you plan on playing? I said, whatever the hell I want. Not scrambling, making awards or all this kind of stuff, just in case we have enough players, and then we don't. We've had enough players. It's just disappointing to do all that extra work, and then you can't seem to grow the community. Okay, let's close up the bottom of this one. Okay. There's that on both of these. Now, while that's drying, I'm going to paint the little German crosses. We're going to need some black. The Hoffman. How's it going? You gonna be on for a bit tonight? About to bust out some Milliput. Yeah, I should be on, yeah. Let's talk Japanese shit. You into all Asian stuff or just Japanese stuff or just Godzilla or all of the above? I know you like Romance of Three Kingdoms. I assume you drive a Japanese vehicle? I do. Anything else would be uncivilized. I wish I liked domestic vehicles, but I just don't. Let's do the top here. Going to Tokyo in August, hoping to get some cool historical magazines, which are huge over there. Historical magazines. I guess they probably have them here as well, but we opened up a new Barnes and Noble here in town. We hadn't had one in about 15 years. We did, and it was like second fiddle to Borders. I was a fan of Borders. And they closed it down here. The only book type store that we have here would be like a Books A Million, which doesn't have very good selection. They just opened one at the beginning of April. So they have one in Jacksonville. And in Jacksonville, they carry War Games, Soldiers, and Strategy at that Barnes and Noble. But the one here, of course, doesn't have it. But it's easy enough to just go and get a digital copy of whatever you want. Let's make this a little bit thicker here. And then we'll come in with a black and clean that up. This is the kind of stuff I really like to do. This is the heraldry equivalent of this. Yeah, and I may be inspired to put these same numbers on the back of the turret. There's a good chance I'm going to do that. Just kaiju and Three Kingdoms. Who's your second favorite kaiju? We have these things called half-price books. Used bookstores, some freaking huge, while others can be small, medium. Found 99% of my history books there. There is a place in Jacksonville that I'm not sure what the footprint originally was. It's an interesting building, and that it's kind of on a curve. I'll show you a picture of it. It's kind of cool. It's one of those places you go to have things find you, not the other way around. I want to say it's like an old furniture store. That's what it looks like. It's called the Chamberlain Book Mine. And it's kind of on a curve, the front of it. Yeah, that's the front of the building, but not. It's kind of on a curve, and I don't know how many square feet it has, but it is jam-packed with stuff like this. This is like what the World War II section would look like. Like, not only is there stuff everywhere, but there are totes of old magazines and stuff like that. The bad thing about it is a lot of it is really old stuff, which means probably somebody had it somewhere dusty already, and then it gets dusty in here, and your hands just end up basically looking undead by the time you're done in there. And you could probably spend a lifetime in there looking for stuff, but what I noticed was, last time I went there, I came empty-handed. I got most of my ospreys from there. They're, you know, if you find an osprey, they're basically half off. And I had a couple. I had like 3 or 4 of them in my hand. I had like the osprey one and the Remagen, and I had like a panther versus Sherman and tiger versus firefly or something like that. And by the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to pay half price for a book that's super dusty. I'd rather just get it for a third off and buy it through Amazon or something. So I ended up not. I spent like an hour and a half there. I wanted to just go there and just kind of see if something found me, and it really didn't. I've been there multiple times, and I just didn't want to bring those dusty ass books here, you know. You worry about bed bugs more than dust. I've never seen it. Gamera. Is that the dragon one? What about Mothra? That's the one I always remember. Gamera. Oh, the turtle. What is this Toto slash Gamera? Is that his other name? Toto. Toto is in Mexican Spanish. It is someone who's not well, like a tard or something like that. Would be a Toto. So you don't want really a Toto animal, or you were going to. Oh look, I got a like from my daughter. That's cool. My daughter's on Instagram, and I don't use Instagram very much, but now I think they added something where if I post something on Facebook, it'll automatically post to Instagram, which I don't mind doing it that way, but it used to be you had to post it first to Instagram and then you carry it over to Facebook. The problem with Instagram is every picture has to be square, and that doesn't always work with, you know, what you have on there. Anyhow, I digress. So we have one Balkenkreuz, which looks really cute. Um, Yeah, that looks really cute. So we're going to go over and put another one on this side. Oh, look, we already have the black part. Bed bugs. I've never seen bed bugs. Actually, I've seen pictures of them online, and it is... You know, if you see a disease or a condition or something like that, don't look for pictures online because it's absolutely horrible. It is like, I'm going to, you know, double barrel shotgun time, you know? Yeah, the turtle. I don't know what made you laugh. Oh, the turtle. Mothra, yeah. Mothra has like those little twin little. I don't remember seeing that shit all the time. It's just the one that, you know, makes my. Rodan! Rodan is the one that's the dragon, right? That's like. I've seen those things, but I saw them when I was a kid because I'm a dinosaur freak. Oh, that was my first love was dinosaurs. Before I got into World War II, and it's hard to find stuff in the '70s that are dinosaur when you don't get Land of the Lost. You know, Land of the Lost is freaking lame as shit. It's like, man, people were doing drugs everywhere in the. Well, people are doing drugs now, but daughter comes in starting next weekend, so we're gonna find that Godzilla -1 and watch it. I want to see it for the tanks and the heavy cruiser. You know, not that I dislike Godzilla. I'm just saying, you know. I like Godzilla. Kong can go shove a banana up his ass for all I care. Rodan is a pterodactyl. I pray you never have to deal with bed bugs. May 3rd. She'll be here. What channel? On Amazon? I had a roommate one time that had a cat and it had fleas. I don't know shit about fleas. I never lived with animals. I don't know shit about ticks. Because I go outside, but I don't go in the freaking woods. You know? I don't think I ever got ticks as a kid. So anyways, I'm in this roommate. It was a long time ago. It was like 19... what would this have been? 91? Something like that. And he had this cat. And I guess it was indoor and outdoor. And you would sit on the couch, and the cat would, there would be these fleas that would just jump on you and be like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, I'd never seen, what are these, like sesame seeds? I have no idea. That stuff is just weird, I just have never experienced anything like that. Yeah, but we don't get war game soldiers and strategy in ours here, so. But you can get it online. Buy an online copy. It only costs you $5 instead of 8. And then you don't have to worry about having dog-eared pages, which I'm like a Nazi about my books and stuff. I don't like just looking through things carefully and them getting damaged. So. One of you guys, I want to say it was Jeffrey Smith, was telling me about this article in it about how to make trees and stuff, because he's, anti-Yabo camouflage. Because these guys were hosed. In Normandy, it's like you got to get wherever you're going to at night, and hopefully they don't sabotage you. And in the daytime, you just got to lay low because the skies are full of unfriendly aircraft. So we might try that this weekend. I got so many things to do even without buying more stuff. I got that little French store. We'll leave it as a store. I don't know if you want to know what the sesame seeds were. I'm opposite when it comes to books. You should have seen this Hannibal book I used to take to work with me. I think I read that thing 5 or 6 times and it was trash. I loved that book. The only book that I trashed was my DBA 2.2. Because I started getting into that in 2004. That was pre having access to the internet on my phone. I mean, I had a phone, but I didn't have access to the internet. So I always took my backpack everywhere I went. And where is it? Sure, I have it here somewhere. Let's see. I even have a new copy of DBA 2.2. Won't be playing that again. This thing. And my backpack got wet. So it soaked up all the moisture. Here we go. And some of this got consumed, almost like it was eaten by a creature or something. Yeah, this is well loved. It's like I don't know what to do. Okay, I'll bring this with me. You memorize the army list. Man, the army lists look really simple compared to 3.0. And instead of that little rule book, look at this shit. Now, this is a lot thicker because it's covered in plastic, and a lot of these aren't rules. But there's no abstraction in here, though. This is the real thing. There's rules for headlights. It takes one action to turn on or off vehicle headlights. Headlights produce light that's 10 inches long and 3 inches wide in front of the vehicle. I just need to start off by putting some of this stuff on computer. I don't know, but I love worn books. Just tells me they get used and read. Sometimes some of these Japanese books I keep pristine. Oh, and the other book that I have is the naval book that I have on a coffee table. But no, I'm super anal retentive when it comes to that. Okay. The Balkan quartz there is done. Let's do the same thing up with this guy. Seems like a silly place to put the damn cross, like barely even visible, but I was reading an article or a comment on one of the modeling Facebook pages. And I don't know what to make of it, whether it's true or not, but basically it went along the lines of it was talking about, not having the swastika, available, that it's a problem for people having it online. And even in stores and stuff, like obviously you can't get stuff in Germany with the decals with it. They're literally cut out. And this one person commented in Saudi Arabia, this person said that in Saudi Arabia, no problem in swastika. It's visible. However, you can't have any of the German crosses on the vehicle. It's just a standard cross because it's treated as supposedly promoting the Christian religion. So you still can't win. Well, that's it. I'm not moving to Saudi Arabia. I was all set to go over there, but if I can't put any of these iron crosses on my German tanks, I just don't see myself living in Saudi Arabia. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it was somebody's comment. And I'll take your word for it. I don't plan on visiting the Middle East anytime soon. It's crazy how sensitive we are to crooked spiders. I feel like we live in a Twilight Zone episode. You need to show it. You don't glorify it, but you gotta show what these people look like and what they wore, and I remember, speaking of ignorance, I remember being in middle school, and I was either in 7th grade or 6th grade, trying to think what a classroom was. I went to this public middle school that I think I'd rather go to jail and not pick who my boyfriend is than spend any time at that school. God, how I hated this school. And anyways, I think it was 7th grade. And I go into this classroom, and they have these desks that, they're just a standard desk that's probably this big, and they're hollow in the middle of it, right? So you can, put shit in there. They're not just like the ones that you, write on, but they literally have, an opening where you can put things in there. And scribbled inside the, almost kind of like a, you know what I'm talking about, almost like a cubby desk. You got a flat top, and then you've got this area underneath it that's all metal and, woodish type top. And inside the metal part, somebody had scraped and put a swastika down. They had scraped the swastika in there, and underneath the swastika, they put "commies suck." And I mean, this just shows you the ignorance. Like, there's some kid that's 12 years old, and he thinks that the swastika are commies. I mean, no, the swastikas are shitty people too. I mean, they also suck, but I'll never forget that. The internet is made us go. Many of us go a little crazy. It gives everybody a voice. It gives crazy people a voice, and it gives crazy people a chance to find other crazy people, and then be not so embarrassed of being crazy, and like, well, you got to accept me for being a crazy person. That's the problem. And I don't mean that, I don't want to disenfranchise people, but if you're an ignoramus, or if you're out to actually cause turmoil, I don't think you should have a voice, because you're basically, you're sending people off, you're sending lemmings off of a cliff. Now, there's a couple of Facebook groups that I'm in, and it's not a Facebook problem, because I think Facebook is very useful. I use it a lot for the hobby. Some people don't like to use it. I do like to use it for the hobby. I don't discuss politics and argumentative points, but I think it's a good tool to find other folks that have the same interest that you do in hobby related. That's pretty much what I use it for. But there's a couple of Facebook groups that are like Naval Historia, I think is one of them, or something like that. They're history-based ones where people post photos and things like that. And some of the comments that get put in there out of sheer ignorance, it's almost as bad as if you put a picture in and said, "What ship is this? Wrong answers only." Or don't put wrong answers only. You basically get so much wrong answers, it's exhausting. A lot of people are just afraid of saying they don't know something. There's lots of shit I don't know anything about. I was asked in the model meeting. I did a presentation on not a presentation, but I did a show and tell on a Flampanzer. The theme was vehicles that had some kind of fuel. And since I don't have a fuel truck yet, and didn't buy one specifically for that, I had a Flampanzer. So I brought a Flampanzer in. I talked about the Flampanzer 3 and the length of how long it would spray and how many gallons it carried and what units used it and everything. And one of the guys asked me, he's like, "What kind of pressure does it push it out at?" And I'm like, it said it in the article, but I didn't write that down because I'm not a science guy. I'm a history and a geography guy. I'm not a science guy. Science doesn't excite me. I'm not anti-science. I'm just saying that there's a lot of things in science that I just don't find interesting at all. I loved earth science when I was a kid, but there's just some stuff that just doesn't resonate with me. So, what pressure the fuel spills out at? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not into that. And I didn't write it down, but I wasn't afraid of saying I don't know. There's just some things I just don't know. I can't be your messiah for everything. It doesn't mean I hate science. That's not what my focus is. Now, if something has a map, I'm all up in that. I'm the map guy. I like maps more than history. Maps are awesome. And it's something I use in my daily work. But that's just coincidence. I'd still be into maps. I love Google Earth. I wish Google Earth was live. And I don't mean with better resolution so you could look at girls laying by the beach. I'm just saying with the same resolution. It would just be handy let's see what's moving around on this port. I'm just being nosy, I think it's super cool. You like Facebook, but I hate that they allow so many bots and foreign users that just want to spread chaos on their platform. Yep, I really hope one day soon we'll need an ID to be on the internet. I'm not a science person either, but I really think geoscience or natural disaster stuff. I don't like natural disaster stuff because it's like the media can't wait to tell you about some disaster so you can be scared about something else. You know, it's like, I got enough problems, man. You know? You think there's a lot of misinformation on the internet? There probably is. But, you know, the way to solve that is just be a skeptic. Be like, is this really the case? As Tick would say. But is this really the case? I wonder if you'd be any fun playing games with. I tell you who I think I tell you what fun YouTuber I think would be a lot of fun playing games with, and I think that's Lindy Beige. I think Lindy Beige would be. I think Lindy Beige could be a hoot. You never know. I like his energy. I appreciate his energy. I feel like sometimes I got too much energy too. I'll go to places and other people will be in a different hobby, and I show up and I'm like, I get a little too excited about things. And a lot of it, some of it is I also I don't know that I don't think I have a condition. Not compared to the rest of you guys. I don't necessarily mean you. I mean just in general. But because of my job, I feel like I'm rushed all the time to explain stuff before I get interrupted and lose my train of thought. So frequently throughout my day, I feel like I'm being chased by wild dogs to a degree, and so I end up rushing myself. Because you know the interruptions just kill me. You know, and it just they're a huge part of my daily activity is getting interrupted and like, okay, what the fuck was I thinking about? You know, and you just slowly drive yourself crazy. Lindy Beige gets on my nerves. It's the sweater, isn't it? Or is it the hair? His energy's all right, but he seems like the guy who tries to correct everything you say, even when you're generalizing. He would be a dick. That would make him a dick for sure. I try to encourage people to be skeptics, but I don't know if everybody can do it. Yeah. The guy I don't like is I don't like. I just mean personality wise. He's probably fine. You know what I like is I like people that are the same in real life as they are online. And there's a guy that does car reviews, and I ran into him. He's probably the most famous person. He said, hey, what's the most famous person you've ever met? Well, Phil Barker. Well, who's the second most famous person I've ever met? This guy who does car reviews. His name is Joe Rady, and he's superb. And I met him at a car show, and he's has the same personality as he is online. So he obviously does that really well. But I don't like the Chieftain. I think the Chieftain is just boring as shit. I just he's a little too sedated for me. I haven't watched Lindy Beige in a while either, but he did one on the German half tracks and brought out his models. That episode was superb. Seems like the guy who tries to correct everything you say when you're generalizing. Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of giving people their medicine back. Oh, you because I sometimes say something inadvertently because I'm like I'm racing myself. So sometimes my mouth is talking faster than my brain can catch up. Don't mean you're slow. Whatever. Sometimes, and somebody said, "Hey, you said no. You said this when you meant the other thing." I said, "Well, I made a mistake, but at least I combed my hair." Who's the Chieftain? The guy from the tank guy from World of Tanks. People love him. So different internet personalities don't necessarily work for everything else. I wasn't a fan of the Gunny. I like people that can kind of step away from and not be emotional about facts and kind of look at things, not just be like, the best stuff is the Americans because I was in the U.S. Army kind of thing. You know, the plane groups are terrible. They always put something. What's the best plane in World War II? Oh my God! You just ignore that conversation. Who was it that was saying they didn't like the guys that did the? Man, the more I'm doing these, the better I get. Well, that's how it should work. I shouldn't go down a. Shouldn't go to shit the more I do them. Little Wars. They didn't like Little Wars. I think their programming quality is incredible. I think they're on hiatus. But a couple of the guys, when I was at Historicon filming it, they did not like being filmed by somebody else. And you would think that people that are used to being filmed would do better than that. Maybe they were concerned that I was going to somehow take something out of context. They don't know that, but that's not the kind of person I am. I never do shit like that. That's dishonorable crap. I don't do things like that. That's like, how do you live with yourself kind of stuff. I don't watch tank stuff or probably don't know him. Yeah, I don't know if he's currently in the military. He's like an Irish tanker or something like that. And he's got contracted by the World of Tanks people to do like walkarounds and videos. And he's got really good information. He knows his shit, or he does a good job of presenting the info that other people have researched for him. I don't know. I'm not going to judge him on that. I just think that he's a little low energy for me. Das ist gut. Das ist gut. We got all kinds of little things to paint on here. We already drilled a hole for the antenna, as they say in the South, in the deep South. I'm going to go ahead and paint all the black parts, which are like the machine gun and stuff like that, the base color. But I'm not going to use this holy brush. We need to save its strength for later. So let's grab one that we still have some control with, but maybe is a little bit more weather beaten. Being popular, they probably get a camera shoved in their face more often than we do and probably have someone else use them out of context. Yeah, that's dishonorable shit if people do that. That's why you need to bring duels back. Put up with stuff like, get rid of things like that. In my world, I forget that there's people that are, dirt bags in that way. think this is what do we got here? Here's another one of these clamps. An axe and a shovel. How do I pronounce antenna? That's the right way to pronounce it, right? Not antenna. A whip antenna. Yep. What are you making with a milliput? Anyways. And which milliput is it? Is it the white? I've got some of it. I don't love it. I like the green stuff better. It's certainly more inexpensive than the green stuff. I need to Amazon some of the green stuff that's made by another company and see if it's any good. A little bit less expensive. And maybe if there's like a green stuff that's a little bit easier to knead together. Because like, man, I hate to sound like a wimp, but it'll wear you out. Trying to, especially if it's cold, you know, it'll wear you out. Okay, this is another bar, so that bar is going to have to be all metal. Thank God it's a weekend. I think I pronounce it the southern way. The green stuff is just so expensive, and milliput can be found at Michael's. I'm sealing some gaps in this. Oh, what scale is that? All right, I'll give you bump for that. And let's do the bump the easiest way that I know how. Go to top chat, and then go back to live chat, and we have a bump. 1/700 scale minus one Godzilla. Is he waterline? Is it a waterline 1/700 scale? I like 1/700 scale for like ships and stuff. I think that's a really good scale. Especially because for the longest time they've made a lot of waterline stuff in that scale. There's a company way back when called Aoshima. Might be called Aoshima, but they make it. Hasegawa, Fujimi used to make them. Tamiya, or however you want to pronounce that one. Still, my favorite model company of all time is Tamiya, even though they don't make 1/72nd scale vehicles. I am very fond of that company. That is the gold standard as far as I'm concerned. Yes, there might be people that are better at it, but they strike a balance between the instructions being clear, easy to put together, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I've built many of their things. I had a Fujimi Stuka that I wish I hadn't sold. But the box art on it was just absolutely gorgeous. Whatever artist painted that was like, should have had an award named after them. Gonna build a 1/700 scale ship soon. Just trying to finish up some of your current projects first. Built that heavy cruiser. Which one did you say it was? It was Takao? Maya is the one I like. Maya is just awesome looking. Because Maya had a bigger, I don't remember if you're into ships or not. Maya had an even bigger conning tower than the rest of them. But they converted her to give her some more AA guns and got rid of ABC C turret. So it only had it only had 8-inch guns instead of 10. But she looked badass. She looked badass. It would have been interesting to see how the Japanese would have done in the Second World War if the U.S. wasn't in it. Because the problem is the U.S. just can outproduce the living shit out of everything. Okay, so it's kind of like, okay, that's a pretty unfair advantage. But, so I like to do, when we did Pacific War stuff, I like doing the really early stuff with the ABDA and that kind of stuff. So, what's the other one I always like? Suzuya. Although Suzuya was a Mogami class, and the Mogamis originally were built, basically they're Japanese Brooklyns. They had 15 6.1-inch guns, and then they got converted to having 5 turrets of double eights. I always forget the names of the ships in the movie -1, but there's this medical ship Hasegawa model you're looking at. Oh yeah, I don't know what the name of it is, but I bet it ends in Maru. There's some interesting Maru name things, like Kinshasa Maru. They'll have, like, I don't know if that's one of them, but they have definitely names that, are kind of out of the ordinary. But then, Maru on the back kind of pulls them back into like, oh, okay, I get it. It's a merchant ship. Got it. Hasegawa Maru. Like that one that was, that famous picture of the one that was wrecked on the shore of Guadalcanal. Yeah, really early Pacific is a lot more interesting. The outcome still hung in the balance. Absolutely. All the way through Guadalcanal. All the way through Second Naval Battle of Guadalcanal. That's the one where the Washington and South Dakota are firing at the Japanese at point blank range. It's Washington, South Dakota, and 4 destroyers versus Japanese had a tog. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they had a toggle. The admiral that always came down the slot. He was the cruiser commander. He always picked the Otago as his command ship. It was a modern cruiser and probably was, had good communications instead of being in, a Congo class battleship that were built in 1913, heavily modernized, but still a 1913 ship, The one with the student on it. A student? No. Let me grab this. You might find this cool. I only have like one episode. I only have like one of these magazines. And it's a magazine called After the Battle. And I have one on Guadalcanal. And I'll find what the fuck it is, though. Let's see. Boom! That didn't take long. All you gotta do is act like, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna find this. Bam, you found it. Ah, okay, with a negative attitude. That's how you do it. After the Battle, Guadalcanal. And this is, I don't know, this is probably from the early 90s. Let's see. 2000. 2000. And I bet there's, the bad thing is a lot of this, what I was going to say, a lot of this is black and white, but there's some color stuff in here. Guadalcanal today. No, in the year 2000. Yeah, all kinds of pictures of Henderson Field and here's one. I don't know if this is the same one or yet a different one. Like, oops. Left. Where's the left one? I guess this is the left picture. On October 14th, a high-speed convoy consisting of 6 Japanese fast transport vessels began the approach to Guadalcanal, escorted by 9 destroyers. It carried 4,500 infantry troops, a battery each of 100 millimeter and 150 millimeter guns, a battalion of anti-aircraft guns, a tank company, and stocks of supplies. Aircraft from Henderson Field located them before nightfall, but only managed to damage one of the escorts. During the night, the transports reached their anchorage off Tassafaranga, and so that's over on the west side, and began unloading. Thinking themselves safe from American airstrikes after the devastating destruction wrought by the bombardment of Henderson Field the previous days and nights. Yeah, because there was a couple of things in October where the Japanese sent the Hae and the Kirishima, 14-inch gun HE, bombarding the living crap out of the Henderson Field, and it's like point blank freaking range for a battleship at that rate. It's like they probably had to shoot really high in the air just to kind of get the shells to fall the right way, because it's like we've done a lot of battles at Guadalcanal, and the combat ranges are really, really short. Between Savo Island and Guadalcanal is really, really tight. So thinking themselves safe from American airstrikes after the devastating destruction wrought by bombardment of Henderson Field the previous days and nights, they continued to unload after dawn. However, American fighters and dive bombers still managed to take off, and together with B-17 bombers from Espiritu Santo, attacked the ships. Despite heavy aircraft fire and attacks by Zero fighters, they managed to sink 1 transport and set 2 more afire. One of them was Kyushu Maru, set ablaze by a bomb hit, after which was run aground at Doma Beach. And here's on the right picture, the same bay today, with Bunina Point jutting out just from the left and Savo Island in the distance. The remains of the Kyushu Maru's bow are scattered in a pile of metal on the beach. The stern is still in the water. The 75mm gun on the bow was removed later and today sits on top of a ridge at the western edge of Henderson Airport, overlooking the Lunga Bridge. Yeah, cool stuff. Kyushu Maru. Yeah, I always say that I don't read very many books because they all the way through. I like to read, but it's too relaxing and I fall asleep. But I did read this one way back when, and you'll see what condition this book is in that I read all the way through, and you'll see how anal retentive I am about books. This is better than most things at Barnes and Noble, condition-wise. This is an excellent book. This is an excellent book, and it has land stuff and the sea stuff as well. So yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. But that's, I don't mind the Pacific in that time period because it's still kind of, up in the air. And if the Americans have any ships, they're not Fletcher's, Cleveland's, and Essex class aircraft carriers. There's a little bit of variety of stuff. That's a brand new book. Students on it. Maybe it was another battle. I learned about the student casualties from a Japanese horror game that had one of the students and dead soldiers haunt an island. Well, I have a black belt in Google Fu. So, we're going to do World War II, Japanese students island. That's what I'm searching for. And we'll see what we get. Let's see if this is correct. Was it female students? This has got to be what it is. The Himeyuri students. Japanese female students and teachers working as nurses during the Battle of Okinawa. I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about this at all. The Himeyuri students, sometimes called Lily Corps in English, was a group of 222 students and 18 teachers of the Okinawa Daiichi Girls High School and Okinawa Shihan Women's School. Excuse my pronunciation, but it's better than most Americans. That's not saying much. But they were formed in a nursing unit for the Imperial Japanese Army during the Battle of Okinawa in 1945. They were mobilized by the Japanese Army on March 23rd, 1945. The students were wrongly told that the Japanese Army would defeat the American invasion easily and that they would be safe from danger. You fuck up now. Many brought their school supplies and uniforms with them to study and prepare to return to school. Deployed instead to frontline cave hospitals under constant gunfire and bombings, few students and teachers managed to survive the war. Is that what we're talking about? The entrance to a cave where several dozen Himeyuri students died on June 19th, 1945. Yeah, that's probably bad. He encounters American flamethrowers or something like that. Up until the Himeyuri unit was dissolved, only 19 students had been killed. On June 18, 1945, a rough dissolution order was given to the unit, told simply to go home. Amidst total war, the schoolgirls suffered a high casualty rate in a crossfire of Japanese and American forces. In the early hours of the next day, June 19th, 5 teachers and 46 students hiding inside the Ihara 3rd Surgery Shelter were killed by white phosphorus munitions during an attack by U.S. forces. In the week following the dissolution order, approximately 80% of the girls and their teachers remaining on Okinawa Island died. 136 Himeyuri mobilized into the Haibaru Army Field Hospital were killed. Overall, 211 students and 16 teachers were killed. Some committed suicide in various ways because of chastity fears of systematic rape by U.S. soldiers. Before the fighting could end, some students threw themselves off the jagged cliffs of the Arasaki seashore, poisoned themselves with cyanide, earlier administered to soldiers in terminal condition, while others killed themselves with hand grenades given to them by Japanese soldiers. How horrible. Wow, I didn't know anything about that. That's got to be what you're talking about. You know, we like painting these toys, but war sucks, you know? Rough ass story. No shit. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a warmonger by any stretch of the imagination. This stuff is cool, but it's well, it's the same thing. If somebody was ever going to tell me and said, you know, why do you do all these war things? Because like, for instance, I would love to go to an air show, but I don't want to go to like a rocket launch. Like rockets, the space doesn't interest me, but like warplanes do. I always say like, put guns on it and I'm interested in it. But if somebody says, why do you like all these weapons of war if you're like, non-violent type of person, and it's just like, it's the same way that somebody's into horror, but they don't want to see innocent people murdered. Like I'm not into horror at all, but I mean, that's the best analogy I can think of. I don't want to see people killed for no reason. Um, yeah, that's a rough ass story, man. Well, you read that book about Guadalcanal and the hardships that the Japanese went through. I'm not saying the Americans didn't go through hardships, but the Japanese basically got kicked off the island, so they had to send more places. They want to attack Henderson Field and all that from every direction and coordinate it. The problem is they have a hard time landing on the eastern side of the island. So to get over to the eastern side of the island, to envelop it from that side as well, they've got to land on the western side of the island, and then march their happy ass all the way through, and hopefully not get lost, and not enough supplies to make it. It's just, it is just like, brutal, absolutely brutal. But I forgot they landed artillery and stuff like that. And tanks. I thought the only tanks that were on the islands, there were some Hagos that landed on the islands over there at the beginning of the conflict on Alligator Creek. You got knocked out at Alligator Creek, and the U.S. had some Stuarts there, which, run circles around a Hago. Stuart is the best light tank of the Second World War, easily. And from reliability and firepower and everything. We're not talking about Chafee's. Chafee's is cheating. Chafee's is just a light medium tank. Light tanks don't have 75 millimeter guns. Okay, that's brutal. That's a badass. But all the other ones, yeah. Stuart's a great little tank. Cute too. What I know about the dog fighting around Burma, I don't know much. I know that the Japanese army. The Japanese and the Italians are similar in a couple of respects. You can't say that the weapons they had were garbage. The Japanese had really well trained sailors, and they had really good ships, and then they just ran out of folks, and didn't have the ones to replace them. The Japanese had good planes, but all their good planes were the Navy had. So the Navy planes were good. The Army planes, not so good. They had some late war Army fighters that were pretty darn good, but they showed up really, really late on the scene. Japanese tanks pretty much all around sucked, just like the Italians. Italian ships were very modern. They just didn't have the fuel. And I think one of the problems that the Italians had in the Second World War is they won the First War. If they would have lost the First War, they would have had a little bit more, I don't know, payback gusto in them. I think that was a big. I think that was a problem. That's my personal opinion. I think that was one it is, but that's absolutely gorgeous ships. They had some aircraft that were good, but they had fuel issues, and their tanks were garbage as well. So it's funny how they had those type of similarities. Of course, the Japanese had good aircraft as far as the Navy aircraft, but the Army ones just Dogfighting, the Army that started off with the Nates, and the Nates is uh, the Japanese aircraft, as a general rule, early in the war, were severely under underarmed. And that's a problem because if you're fighting the Americans, who have the best armored aircraft, or maybe not armored aircraft, but the American aircraft were some of the most survivable of all the aircraft of all the major nations. Not all the Russian aircrafts were Sturmovix. Okay, they had dogs, but Sturmovik is very survivable. But you're talking about a Nate has like freaking like two machine guns, two 30 caliber machine guns. Like, are you going to try to drop a P-40 with that? A P-40 might not be the most maneuverable aircraft in the world, but it can dive like a mofo and has self-sealing fuel tanks and that kind of stuff. So, but as far as the dogfighting, the Japanese aircraft were really maneuverable. I don't know about the Nates, but the Oscars were. But the Oscars, again, they have a 150 caliber machine gun and like 130 caliber machine gun. That just doesn't cut it. Where the American aircraft have at least 450s. At least 450s. There's exceptions to everything, but it's just some real out of disproportionate type of armament and stuff like that. Now, as far as Burma goes, I don't know a whole lot, but I know enough to. There's a couple things that really surprised me. One of the things that surprised me is that the Japanese launched attacks up into 1945, several of them in 1945 to bust into India. So, and they were in places the whole war that they never got kicked out of. They never got kicked out of New Guinea. I didn't know that. I figured the Kokoda Trail started in 1942, about the same time as Guadalcanal is. But in 1943, it's a done deal. Oh no, they were still fighting. It was still, New Guinea was contested all the way through the end of the war. Didn't know that. So there's a lot of opportunities to learn new things about the Pacific that I just don't know about because I've never gamed it. I played one game of land combat in the Pacific ever. And the people Japan fought were also not so modern, so they needed less. Yeah, they ran circles around the Chinese. Burma stuff is always something I wanted to read more. The Navy also took over the Army and civil government. That's why they had such a hard focus on the Navy. Yeah, there's a company. I can't think of who they are right now. They make buildings for Burma, and there's some awesome looking buildings. So, yeah, it's certainly an opportunity for me to learn something that I'm not familiar with, which I welcome, But you run into something like a Matilda. We played one scenario, I think it was in New Guinea, and the Austrian fight. Mitch and I, it was because it was actually Mitch. It was chain of command, and we both played Japanese, and we had like a 47 millimeter anti-tank gun, and maybe we had like a 75 millimeter pack howitzer. We had some machine guns and maybe a mortar or two, and about a platoon of infantry. And here come the Australians with 3 Matildas. You got nothing that can deal with a Matilda. Nothing. Go dig a hole, go hide in the hole as deep as you can, and hopefully the Matilda doesn't run over you. And then wait till they leave. You've got nothing to deal with, If Matilda was the queen of the battlefield in the desert, there's nothing the Japanese have that can stop it. People always knock into Sherman. Sherman is basically, might as well be a king tiger in the Pacific. And there's versions of the Zippo one. They replaced the bow machine gun with a flamethrower. Oops. All right, I need to look at where the metal parts are on this MG34. So we're going to do a Google image search for MG34AA mount Panther. Doesn't have to say Panther. I'm just going to throw Panther in there as well. Okay, images. And all right, so the metal goes way back here. All right, so all the way up to this point. All that is going to be primered in black. And then we'll detail it as appropriate. You know, I think the Japanese small arms were worse than the Italian ones. You know, they had light machine gun jam like a mother, you know. Hopper fed light machine gun. Not a good combination with a really dirty environment. Mr. Marcus, welcome. But it's certainly a subject I'd like to learn more about. And I gotta admit, it'd be fun as hell to play Japanese. You get to make all kinds of guttural sounds. You know, you get to be suicidal. No, you get to be like, you know, F it, let's charge. You know? I think this is a metallic piece as well. And I got some really cool Japanese figures, actually. Some that may not be very PC looking in the face, but hey, I didn't sculpt them. Just before I came on here, I played some. What is it called? World of Warships? Yeah, World of Warships. And I just unlocked a Japanese carrier and had a lot of fun with that. Of course, you know, I'm like, okay, what planes are these? I want to read about the planes. I mean, gaming for me has always been about learning about real stuff that's in it, you know? I mean, yeah, it's still a game, but it's still like, okay, how do I participate in this? Okay, let me read more about the particular model or what have you. All right, I think it's tea time. I don't know if I ever played a World War II game. I played Samurai, Napoleonics, Medieval, and Ancients. Never played World War II, huh? I think of all those, the ones that would interest me the least would be Napoleonics. I don't know, it's just not something that, it just seems like everybody would be the same. They do, you know, almost to the same degree. I just didn't grow up playing Napoleonics. You know, I grew up watching World War II movies, so that's the stuff I wanted to play. I didn't see any Napoleonic movies until I was, probably my 30s. I didn't see Waterloo in my teens. It wasn't on TV. Tough week, but we're in the weekend. Yeah, tell me about it. Nice to hear some Pacific chat. I'm working on some Japanese now. Yeah, the only reason I'm not interested in the Pacific is because I just feel like it could be really unbalanced, you know. And don't get me wrong, I'm willing to do stuff. I think Burma's perfect. I think New Guinea's good. I think Burma's even better than New Guinea. But island hopping, I don't want to do Tarawa. Or I had a 7th grade history teacher that would call that island Tarawa. No, it's never Tarawa. The figures on deck are interesting, including some out of production Bum resin cast. Yeah. The question is, if you do Japanese, who do you pick as their opponent? Because if you do stuff with like the Marines are out. Like the Marines on Guadalcanal aren't typical Marines. Okay, they didn't have. They were under equipped. They had Springfield rifles and they didn't have the normal Marine gear. You get Marine figures, it's not those guys. So do you do Chindits? I don't know. I got to read more about it. But they launched they launched attacks up into 1945, like multiple attacks. The only thing is, like, if you're doing Chinese, there's only one manufacturer that makes Chinese figures in 72nd scale. It's Caesar, right? I think it's Caesar. You would do the Soviets. The Soviets freaking ran circles around them. That's saying something because they really suck at that pie. Barcelona Universal Models. Chinese, yeah. The Chinese would be cool. Philippines, too. Philippines in 42 or Philippines in 44? You can use Panzer ones for the. What else did the Chinese use? The Chinese, I want to say, had T-26s. They had Panzer ones. They used German style helmets. No, it's like a snafu, of different things. I remember the first airplane model I ever got was a Flying Tiger P-40 because of the shark mouth. And, who doesn't like that? I'm sure there's somebody out here that doesn't like the shark mouth. And it's this probably the same prick that doesn't like the Spitfire. It's you, pal. You're that guy. Anyhow, I remember getting this P-40 and I'm like, what the hell kind of symbol is this? I'm like, I've never seen this before. It's not a star. It's a multi-edged star. Like, what is it? It was the, Chinese nationalist emblem. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like a 10-year-old kid. It doesn't make sense to me. 42? Yeah, they got the M2 Stewarts at that time period. Do Stewarts and Hagos and. Have any of you guys listened to the Pacific series that Dan Carlin did? I learned so much about the Philippines. I didn't know shit about the Philippines. I still don't know shit about the Philippines, but yeah, that was really interesting. He did his multi-part series on the Pacific War. So I'm willing to learn more about it. I did the little Hago. It's not completely finished, but it's the only Japanese vehicle I've ever painted. Other than 1/2400 scale Navy ships. I do have some of those. I haven't put the little jungle grass on it yet. I haven't decided what it is, but I am going to go with this ground color. It's almost like a little red clayish looking. This thing's adorable. Even though the casting is garbage, it's a bad casting. This is a cute little vehicle. I was watching one of those walkthroughs by the Chieftain on the Hago. I think it was the Chieftain on the Hago. And even though a lot of the Japanese stuff is really primitive, like, for instance, the way you aim that gun, you almost have to put like a harness on, and you have to lean your body. There's a couple British tanks that are the same way as well. But it's kind of, there's a lot of primitive stuff on this vehicle. But I believe it was this vehicle that there was actually a little box on the outside of the tank that you could open it, and there was a telephone, a handheld telephone, where the infantry could open that and talk to the crew members inside of the tank and coordinate stuff like, that machine gun's really bugging the hell out of me. Why don't you drop an HE round on them or something like that? Like, that's pretty advanced. Germans didn't have shit like that, you know? You keep getting cut off by commercials. Really? Here? I would make some kamikaze late war scenarios too, with the Japanese score by landing successful kamikaze attacks. We played one of those at the convention a couple conventions ago. We were all members of a destroyer. It was a 3-person game, and then one person played the Japanese. And we used this guy brought a Blue Devil, Lindbergh Blue Devil destroyer. It's a Fletcher class square bridge, I'm pretty sure. And it's like, if it's not 1/72nd scale, it's pretty close to 1/72nd scale. It's big. It's like 3 foot long. And we were different fire control officers, and the Japanese would come and do attacks, and we needed to survive. It was cool. It was definitely a cool game. Been watching a lot of the Kings and Generals series. There's some jungle fight you could do with the Japanese and the Moro tribes. Okay, that's the guys that are in the Philippines. Is that Hago 1/72nd? It is. Yeah, well, the Panther's huge. And it's a 5-man. There's more. I was about to say, there's more people inside this turret than there are in this whole fucking tank. But that's not true. This is a 3-man tank, I'm pretty sure. And, you got a driver, you got a bow machine gun slash. I don't even know if it has radio. You got 2 guys in the hall, and you got the commanders doing everything else. He's busy. He's like a French tank. He's doing it all. Okay. He's running the 37mm gun. If the rear-ish facing machine gun needs to be fired, he also fires it, which is interesting because it does not have a coaxial machine gun. It's got a machine gun in the hull, but there's no gun beside the 37mm. There's a machine gun back here at the quarter, kind of like at a 5 o'clock position, or maybe 4:30. So a lot of these vehicles, what they did in an overrun, you're suppressing the infantry, and you're basically blowing through them, and your infantry's going in and cleaning up and throwing grenades and, kind of shock and awe, so to speak. An actual cannon's not that useful. A machine gun's more useful. So what would happen is that they would turn this turret so that the machine gun is firing to the front, like in this position. So you got 2 machine guns firing forward, overrunning the position, because the 37mm, is not super handy to be. And I just broke the machine gun off this corner. I guess I'll have to put another one in there. I felt that. Damn it, man. Anyways, this is a very primitive. I can't wait to paint more Japanese tanks, though. I mean, it's super cool, And the paint scheme, I don't care if they're diminutive. The shittier the Japanese tank is, the more compatible it is with infantry fighting. The more chances the infantry has a chance to do something to it. So, it's a lot easier to harm this thing than it is a Panther. I mean, unless you've got, bazooka or Panzerfaust or something like that. Damn, now you're interested in Japanese army. You're welcome. At least to read about it, It's something I've always wanted to paint. Don't know. I only know how to build DBA armies, though. How to build a Japanese on paper so I know what to buy. Well, I'm sure there's great YouTube videos on it. I think the Japanese had a 13-man squad. 1 light machine gunner. No assistant squad leader. I believe they only had a squad leader. They did not have an assistant squad leader. Kind of like the Russians. So in that respect, they were kind of like the Russians. Italians, I think, were the same way. Brits, Germans, Americans. Don't know about the French, but those three for sure had squad leader and assistant squad leader. So you got one guy that can be in charge of whatever support weapon is built in there, whether it's a BAR, a Bren gun, or an MG34/42, and then the other guy is running the rest of the squad doing the end around. One suppressing, the other guys are going around and enveloping, what have you. Japanese, I'm pretty sure, only had a squad leader. So, but they got those light machine guns that have bayonets on them, and that is cool. Although I would hate to swing one. You get wore out in a hurry, firing a, what is it, Type 99 or whatever the hell it's called. It's a cool looking machine gun with the banana clip thing on the top, but yeah, with a bayonet on it. World War II games are based more on squads than whole armies. Unlike DBA, yeah. Well, you could play games like Command Decision, things that are a lot more operational, but I think when you start worrying about where the grenade lands and when the party starts. That's what interests me. It's cool stuff. It's a good combination between technology and brute force. And it's still not perfect because you got a lot of situations where radar or aircraft carriers can really give somebody an advantage to just basically avoid a combat that in earlier times would have happened. They could be like, "Oh, I see you coming, so we're just going to play keep away." But I have this flight simulator for the Oculus. They made a World War one. I forget what it's called. World War One warplanes. It's something really generic sounding. And they made a World War II one. You can play Japanese or Americans. And as soon as it came out, I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. Because I'll be able to talk to other people there about World War II. Now, the people playing don't give a fuck. Okay? It's like they're playing Halo. They don't give a shit about any of the historicity of it. They're just, to them, it's just a game. And to me, it's like, let's see how a P-40 flies. Oh, let's see how a Hellcat flies. That I'm role-playing. I'm taking part in it. And everybody else is just playing it like it might as well just be a science fiction game. I was disappointed in that. It's a great game, though, but a little disappointing that wasn't full of World War II aficionados. I expected too much of the human race. It's my own fault. Yeah, generally the Japanese squad leader was just always also armed with a rifle. They had very few automatic weapons. They had very few submachine guns. Although they had enough light machine guns to have one in every squad. You're talking about textbook strength. I mean, you might start off with 13 men, but I think the Japanese squad is 13 men. I'll guarantee there's YouTube programming on it. I'll guarantee there's YouTube programming on it. Let's see what I got. I got a message here. Hold on a second. On your way. Okay. That's the wife. How long ago was that? 14 minutes ago? Okay. Japanese squad. Japanese World War II squad. Look at this. I'm not full of shit. I remember things after a while. Each rifle squad was led by a corporal. and had a 2-man LMG team and 11 riflemen. That's 14 then. Unless the corporal is considered one of the riflemen, in which case it's 13. Here it is. According to this diagram, there is a squad leader and assistant squad leader. Machine gunner is equipped with a Type 90. How the hell did I call it Type 99 and got it right? I've never looked at that. Yeah, all riflemen. The machine gunner has a Type 99 light machine gun and a Nambu pistol. Nambu is notoriously jam-o-matic. Notoriously jam-o-matic. Looks like a Luger, but a shit show. I mean, it's better than I having a pistol, but, you know. Yeah, that's what sucks about online games. You got to fight a role-playing Discord or something. Those Panthers really good, looking nice. We'll catch you in the morning. If you're on, I will be. You're going to bed early tonight, okay? If you want to talk to people role-playing, look up Arma 3 World War II mods. You're looking at these 6mm GHQ models. Yeah, they're some of the most amazing details. Man, I'm so lost when it comes to World War II wargaming. You only know the general history. Oh, man. Come move in. World War II is my religion. That's what I grew up freaking playing games. That's it, you know. I don't know shit about like Napoleonics and American Civil War. The hell's that, you know? World War II, yeah, man. Bring it. There was this game that came out a long time ago. It was an operational style game with like counters and stuff online. I never played it before. This guy says, "Oh, you're going to like this game." I'm really good at it. So he told me how to play the game. He showed me the game. I saw what the menu was. And I whooped his ass back-to-back scenarios. Because I knew what to do with the units. I just didn't know what I needed to, you know, what buttons I needed to press to get them to do the commands they want. But oh, yeah. World War II is fire and maneuver. Pin guys down, advance, close combat them, knock them out. Crossfire. And naval shit, too. Naval shit, when I play naval shit, the way I play naval stuff, if you don't have aircraft, if it's just a straight naval battle, things target your primary target is normally the ship class that's one below you. So battleships, don't screw around destroying other battleships. I mean, sure, they're good to do that, but you'll be there all day. Go after cruisers. And cruisers go after destroyers. And destroyers, well, they're on the bottom of the thing, so they actually go after the battleships. You know, go torp the big guys. And he said the Panthers are looking good. I don't see it yet. We'll get there, but I don't see it yet because there's so many steps left to do on it. And we'll get there. In a perfect world, I'll get these two guys done this weekend. I think that's achievable. I don't think it's asking too much, but you know we're going to get them done correctly. What's your favorite Japanese ship that you're into ships? And what's your least favorite Japanese ship? Most Japanese ships are attractive. I don't like aircraft carriers because they ruin the surface combat possibility. But with that said, I like that the Japanese had a bunch of converted ships and their aircraft carriers, some of them, are all unique from each other. Now, it's probably a supply nightmare, but Akagi is different than Kaga. Akagi is built on an aircraft carrier, on an ex battle cruiser hull, and Kaga was going to be a battleship. So even though people think they're the same class, they're actually not. They actually have conning towers on opposite sides of the bridge. Don't ask me which one has which. Akagi has, as far as which side they're on. Akagi, Kaga's conning tower is kind of hidden. It's like below the actual deck, and Akagi's actually sticks out. Akagi's a good looking ship, you know. I don't like aircraft carriers because they ruin the surface combat ability chance. If you're like, oh, there they are, let's play keep away. Unless somebody comes and takes out your carriers, then you're blind. I don't like Shokaku and Zuikaku. They're a little boring looking. Ryujo's a good looking ship, really good looking ship. Their old 1920s style Sendai, Naka, Kuma type light cruisers are pretty unattractive, but their heavy cruisers are the Suzuyas and the Mogami Suzuyas, Tone. Those are all pretty attractive ships. So I guess I'm more to decide if I'm playing a squad-based operational game. I don't know if my favorite yet. I don't know. I only know you mean the Yamato and the few that were in -1. As a kid, I loved all the Japanese planes. Dad really wanted me into sports, so they did encourage my. Oh, yeah. The Yamato just used up some of the stamp. The Yamato is a beautiful ship. The Yamato is a beautiful ship, especially from if you're looking at it from like it's 11 o'clock or it's 1 o'clock. So just at a slight angle because the island just fills in nicely. If you see it at 180 degrees, there's a little too many gaps for my liking in it. Kind of like Bismarck. Bismarck kind of has some emptiness in there that looks better if you fill it in a little bit more. But Yamato at speed is a beautiful ship. And actually, I think looks a lot better in the 1944 configuration, where it has like this nest of anti-aircraft, of 25 millimeter anti-aircraft. It's like these little eggs, just all these eggs just waiting to shoot up, because the deck just looks so barren without that. It looks so barren, like it needs something. But both of those ships are very attractive. Remember, it's the Yamato, not the Yamamoto. Calling it the Yamamoto is like calling horses cavalry. Oh, I think I have a visitor. Let me go check on the wife. Hold on 1 second. I got my Amazon shipment, which is, they don't have this at the I've gone twice to Hobby Lobby and they don't have this stuff. This is the sheeting that I'm using for the basing when for some of these larger vehicles. So this is the 2mm thick from Evergreen. So I got 4 of those. It was about the same amount in the store, but I had to pay like $4 for shipping. So hey, by the time you waste gas going to the place multiple times, you actually show up ahead. I don't think I know if I forgot the heresy on the pronunciation. Yeah. Well, the one thing about the Japanese ships you got to know is they're certainly more than the Americans. They are definitely offensive, more offensively oriented than the American ships. You know, let's just take the torpedoes out of the equation, because torpedoes are a mixed bag. Yes, the torpedoes that were on the Japanese ships were amazing, the long lances. And all the Japanese ships that had torpedoes had the 24-inch long lances, except for some of the 1920s Japanese destroyers like the Mutsuki and the Kamikaze class. Those had the 21s. But anything else after that time period, the ones that were built in the late 30s, all had the long lance torpedoes, which had a ridiculous range. They had the range on those torpedoes was as far as most battleships can fire. It's out to the horizon, and I know that because we used to game that stuff. Now, however, even though they go really far away, if you see them coming, you got a long time to comb. Even though they were fast traveling. But they're extremely large warhead, extremely deadly if you hit somebody. Now, if you don't have the torpedoes to fall upon, the Japanese cruisers, once they start getting in the late 30s, have a lot of guns. They have a lot of more guns than the Americans do, even though their 8-inch gun isn't as good as the American 8-inch gun. It doesn't penetrate as much. It's a shorter caliber gun, but still they have a ton of them. They tended to have less armor than the American counterparts, but they tended to be faster. Japanese don't have slow ships. The only slow ships the Japanese have would be like Fuso, Yamashiro, Issei, and Hyuga. Those are the only old battle wagons that were in the 24 knot range. The Congos were battle cruisers from the beginning. They were armored, reconfigured, modernized, and basically could still do 28 knots. So even though we were built in like 1914, they're just as fast as the fast battleships, except the Iowas, that the Americans had all the way up until, through when the Iowas come out. Mid 43, late 43, something like that. What else? I guess the Nagatos weren't that fast, but the Nagatos came out about the same time period as they built the Hood. So early 1920s, 22, 24, something like that. They were a 26 knot ship, 8 16-inch guns. One of them didn't survive the war. One of them suffered a magazine explosion just sitting in dock, boop, 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 in 1943, and boom, gone. Like, whoops. The smoking lamp is off. I don't remember exactly what happened, but it blew up in port. I don't know if it was in Kure or somewhere. But all their ships were very offensive oriented. They would have areas that they didn't have the best armor diagram. Some of the best armor is like American ships. Germans aren't bad. Italians, French. All those had the best armor configurations. British, a little light in a few places, the cruiser-wise. Japanese, a little light in a few places as well. But, Japanese have those long lances, which are great if you catch somebody with their pants down or they don't see them coming. I suspect that their ships had an extremely long range as far as, fueling. Something that normally does not come into play on a tabletop game, but it is an important factor. The British County class cruisers, which the British had a ton of, were not particularly impressive in game terms in pretty much any game, but they had one hell of a range. And that's why when they were hunting Graf Spee, two of them were like in the Indian friggin' Ocean, because they could go a long way, on their. They were made for that kind of stuff, or patrolling the colonies and stuff like that. But yeah, later in the war, the Japanese have a problem with American air power is just like overwhelming, just absolutely overwhelming. So if you can get to like Guadalcanal and before, the Japanese are definitely the Japanese Navy is definitely something worth worrying about. How are wargaming rules when it comes to aircraft? I don't know. I haven't played really any aircraft game. It's hard because it's just there's so much movement that happens that it's got to be really stylized. I've never played like that. They make like a Winds of War that's for World War II. I haven't played that one. I've played flight simulators throughout my life, but that's it. But as far as like a tabletop playing game, can't really speak it. I suspect that there's a lot of there's lots of different flavors of it. But I suspect aircraft games, a lot of it depends on your pilot. Pilot skill is key. Now, obviously, you got a super ace in a really crappy plane, extremely crappy plane versus somebody who's not very experienced in a very good plane. Yeah, that probably won't save you, but a good pilot versus a pilot that's not so good in the same plane, yeah, the pilot's not so good's in trouble. Assuming it's not something that's just completely outclassed. One of the guys in the model meeting brought a Japanese float plane I never heard of before. Its nickname was the Norm, and it's a really pretty plane. Norm, Japanese plane. Kawanishi. See if we can find a picture of it. That's a really good looking plane. The Japanese are like the British. They got either really good looking planes or dogs. And there are some dog Japanese planes. This isn't one of them. This is a beautiful aircraft. Pretty cool. And the float planes they specifically made for the super submarines that didn't come out until very late in the war. That's a really pretty streamlined looking plane. But the Japanese planes definitely were underarmed compared to the Americans. They might have some cannons, but the problem with cannons is you don't have a lot of ammunition. So you might have two 20mm cannons, but you only got 200 rounds, which sounds like a lot, but it's not. Which one is the one I showed? Show me a Japanese plane you don't like. Woo! You mean it's unattractive? You won't like them either. Unless you have bad taste. Which you're allowed to have. All the Japanese planes you're probably familiar with are all attractive. Vals are attractive. Kates, I think Kates are really attractive. Bettys, the Betty bombers, those are attractive. Zeros are attractive. Zeros aren't super attractive, but they're not, an ugly plane. And then there's planes you just never, that don't get a lot of Japanese planes. World War II. I personally, my favorite one is the Tony. I wonder why. No, it just looks like a Messerschmitt. Here's a plane would not want to be in. It's a rocket-powered kamikaze bomb, but it's piloted by a person. You never get to fly in it twice. You fuck up now. Here is a poster. Aircraft of the Japanese Air Force. All these are fairly attractive. And one thing that's really cool is the Japanese had these lightning bolts and stripes on the tail, on the vertical tail, that actually I find really attractive. Now, one thing that sucks about them is this little paint scheme the Japanese Army like to do of either a bunch of little dots or like a natural metal finish and then like this almost like stippled on top has just got to be a mother to paint. I'm going to have to get my book out. And there's unattractive American aircraft. Trust me, I do not like the Hellcat at all. I don't care how effective it was. Yes, it was a great aircraft. It did all kinds of stuff. Most Americans had the best kill ratio. Yeah, whatever. It's ugly. Okay? It's ugly. Oh, man. Where is... That is World War II classic military aircraft. Here we go. Classic military aircraft. The Nipponese. Yeah, the markings on the Japanese aircraft are actually really attractive. Little lightning bolts and stuff. Which plane did you show the camera earlier? The float plane that this guy... Oh, we got crooked spiders here. We got to be careful. Oh, more... Jesus. Okay, enough of these Nazi bastards. All right, I better look for... Okay, the Oscar, the Frank, Mitchell, the Zez, the Zip France, Spad, Westland, Yulin, Vickers, Nakajima. What do we got in Nakajima? We got an Oscar and a Frank. Okay, Oscar is the Japanese Army Zero, which looks like a more unattractive Zero. It looks almost frail looking. This is the standard plane here for the Japanese. But look at the markings. That's really cool. That's really cool. Doodliness, welcome. Now, this is good markings. It's got these blue stripes on the top. It's an attractive, here's some examples of it. This is looks like almost a racing version here. Hayabusa, which I believe is I don't know what the hell Hayabusa is. I don't speak Japanese. Peregrine Falcon. Well, why don't we just call it that? The Mavis. The Mavis is a cool... Oh, it's a massive float plane. Enough of these crooked spider people. Look at this big nasty thing. I mean nasty only because it's big. It's freaking cool. Kawanishi. Emily, another big float plane. Almost looks like a Sunderland, which the British used to hunt U-boats. Here's the Tony, and here's a paint scheme that's a pain in the ass to do. It's a Messerschmitt looking aircraft, but it was really underarmed. It only had like 230s and 250s, I think. No, my bad. 220s in the nose and 250 calibers. Not terrible, but you know. Wow, they don't have a lot of them in here? This just has everything, including World War II stuff, but this is just one of those books a million type of books you pick up. That's a book on fighters, so we're not going to see them. It's some bombers they have. They have some bombers that are really unattractive. Really don't. I'm not talking about the Judy. I'm talking about Japanese. How about ugly Japanese World War II planes? That's what we're going to do a search for, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The Shinden. This is. I actually don't think this is ugly. I don't know if these flew or it was late war experimental, but it was a pusher prop plane. I believe it was very very fast. Really wild looking. Japanese World War II bombers. I don't know why I'm not able to find these. And I'm not talking about Kates. I think Kates are attractive. Sleek looking. I guess to be continued. To be continued what they were. I came across some more. There's a whole bunch of them I never even heard. Like, and some of them were just really unattractive. I find it hard to think a World War II plane is ugly. Shindens in -1. Have I seen the Kawanishi E-15K? What was the submarine hunter you called? Not the Mavis. The Mavis is the big one. Emily? I think it's the Emily. Looks like a short Sunderland. Japanese Emily flying boat. That's kick-ass looking. That's kick-ass looking. You find it hard to think a World War II plane is ugly. Oh, there's There's not a whole lot of them. Well, I don't like that. I think the Hellcat's really unattractive. And there's uglier planes than the Hellcat. It's just ugly. It's just all gloss blue, radial engine, boring. I don't care how many Japanese planes you shot down, you're still ugly. Um, the Hellcat's probably the plane that's the most effective that is also super ugly in my opinion. But it was a super effective plane. Ultimately, oh, it doesn't matter. Well, if I'm building a model of it, it does. These German planes that were unbalanced, they had the cockpit off to one side. I think are ridiculous. I think they look dumb as hell. Um, Most German planes are attractive, or as I like to call them, wicked. They're wicked looking. Yeah, this is ridiculous. That's like a motorcycle with a sidecar, but nobody on the motorcycle. You know, the British, they're not on the tip of my tongue what they're called, because uh, a Blackburn Rock is an ugly plane. It looks like you and I put one together with parts that we had left over. Now, the British, however, are famous, in my opinion, in the Second World War for making really good paint schemes on stuff. Their ships look really cool with them, and their planes have really good paint schemes. And the roundel is just a good looking, just a good old looking symbol, anyways. Uh, Blackburn Skua is kind of the same kind of thing. It's people like the rat on the swordfish. I think the swordfish is a really attractive plane. Yeah, the Skua's ugly. It looks like you built it with spare parts. It wasn't a horribly ineffective plane. It sank a Japanese, I mean, it sank a German light cruiser off Norway. They dive bombed the shit out of them. Königsberg or the Karlsruhe, one of the two. One was sunk by a submarine. The other one was dive bombed. Oh, here it is, and there it is. That Colon class light cruiser getting the shit bombed out of it. Yeah, I'll have to find out what those ugly Japanese planes are. But oh, the Nate is ugly as shit. Japanese Nate plane. Japanese Nate plane. Well, it'd be no, not Kate. The Kate's attractive. Nate. It's got fixed landing gear. Archaic. It's like a trainer. Is what it looks like. Didn't Germany have like no money, technology, or anything, and beat all of Europe? Well, I don't exactly know how that works because yeah, they were broke, and I don't know how they got everybody to build stuff. They didn't have radar. I don't know. Believe it or not, one of the first ship, if I remember correctly, that had radar was actually the Graf Spee. Now, it probably limited what it did. It coordinated some of its, but it had like radar in like 1930s. But it wasn't like 1944, U.S. radar. It might have been, it couldn't, search for aircraft or stuff like that. Blackburn looks like a kit bash. Exactly. I don't know if the Germans were really efficient. That's kind of a misnomer. I think they caught everybody with their pants down. And then they, like, oh well, we fought in France for 4 years and couldn't beat them, and then we knocked out France in like a month. Like, oh, we must be invincible. Guess again, you just got lucky. Um, all their military was weird and ineffective. The Helen. Okay, let's look at the Nakajima Helen. Helen, Japanese plane. I think it looks good. I think that looks good. Sleek. But can you imagine painting this in 1/72nd scale with the little modeling and stuff? It's basically a natural finish plane. It's like, oh shit, you can spot this a mile away. Hurry! You know, looks better than this paint scheme. That looks like ass. I don't know, I think it's pretty. I think Helen's pretty good looking. What else we said? Nakajima Helen, the Peggy. Peggy's a terrible name for a plane, but I think the Peggy's a good looking plane if I remember correctly. There's one that looks like a PE-2, which is a Russian light bomber. Imagine a Mosquito, but with really shitty performance. Because a Mosquito actually had really good performance. For a bomber, it probably had the best performance of any plane. Yeah, this is an attractive plane. Peggy's an attractive plane. See, I'd rather call it by its Japanese name. Hiryu. Looks better than Peggy. Again, look at the markings on their tail. They have really cool markings on their tail, the Japanese do. I've never built a Japanese plane. It's going to change. I'm going to build one. I think it's Hiryu, yeah. What is she just? Helen, Peggy. They're terrible names. Helen and Peggy, like, just sound like some, bitch that gets upset because the napkins aren't folded the right way. Germany sent their craziest boats out on solo missions, no air support. Mitsubishi J8M. Okay. Oh, this is a Comet. This is a Japanese ME 163 Comet. Except I bet it was a suicide plane. It looks like a Comet. Yeah, because it's got the same thing. It lands. This is what the Germans did. I bet this is a copy that the Japanese got from the Germans. It's basically it runs on it sits on a little dolly of two wheels. It sits on top of it, and when it takes off, the two little wheels stay there at the runway. It takes off on a ski. It's basically a ski landing thing. So it lands like where there's like a field. So you got to make sure that if it's a field with ruts, you're running with the rut or all bad things. It could tumble like a bad football throw. Okay, I got to find out where these ugly Japanese planes are at some point because there's some really unattractive ones. I'm just not finding them. But it's none of these ones that you mentioned. These are all really good looking planes. Sleek looking plane. Here's another one. Here's another plane of that Peggy. Is it Peggy or Sally? Peggy. Yeah. I think these are all really good looking planes. Should be painted like an orca. Speaking of orca, there's a guy at the model meeting that bought a plane I didn't know anything about. And I think this plane is really cute and reminded me of Shamu. It was called a C-46, not a C-47 that we're all familiar with, a C-46. And C-46, I think, was an extremely attractive plane, but very Shamu looking. What did my wife call it? Chunky. I think that's a cool looking plane. It's bigger than a C-47. You know, U.S. planes would be a lot more attractive if they wore an olive drab, because olive drab just is not an attractive color. But I like the lines of this thing. It looks Shamu like. Look at it in silver. That's a sweet ride. Didn't know anything about it, so I went in there and I came home and I read about it. I'm like, that's what I like about history. You get excited and you get to read about real shit that happened. Didn't know about the wheels. Yeah, it's literally sitting on like a dolly with two wheels. It just sits on top of it. Let's skid. So it takes off, and that thing, it just. I guess they get little kids to come up and bring that back. We need to use that. But the comment. I mean, that's a late the end of the war, last resort type of weapon. So let's see if we can finish painting the rest of these black parts. And now I feel a hankering to do some black lining. Let's at least do one of these, because that's where we're really going to see some of this stuff pop. Oh, I guess I need to do all the black stuff first, though. Now here's another cable and crank and box and yeah, but I really have not spent a lot of time with the Japanese in World War II other than playing naval games with them, and that's only the first part of the war. Because after that, it's just overwhelming with the amount of stuff that the U.S. is bringing to the table is overwhelming, and a lot of stuff that they're bringing to the table, with the exception of some of the refurbished old battle wagons, they're all very generic looking. It's like all the light cruisers are Clevelands, all the heavy cruisers are Baltimores, all the destroyers are Fletchers, all the aircraft carriers are Essex class. So like that's one of the things that makes really cool some of the other nations, like the British. I mean, it's really impractical to have stuff like the British. They had all these leftover battleships and stuff like that. They're all configured in different ways and stuff like that. But it gives them personality. So is it practical? No, but we're war gamers. We're not interested in practicality. I think it's hard to do unattractive planes because by nature they have to be aerodynamic. It's true. The fatter they are, the more I like them. Oh man, chunky. My wife called that C-46 chunky. Let's keep playing. We got a model theme coming up next month. It's the 1930s. So I could do the cop out and build a T-26, which I've made a build, or actually build something from the 1930s. Like a plane from the 1930s that didn't serve in the Second World War. So two things actually came to mind. One of them was a plane that didn't go into World War II, unless you want to call Yugoslavia using them against the Italians as them. Matchbox used to make a model of a plane called a Hawker Fury. And it's a biplane. And don't be mistaken that when you think biplane, it's ugly looking, because there's a lot of biplanes that are attractive, in my opinion. Maybe not many that were in the First World War. Most World War One aircraft, I think, were really unattractive, except for Albatross. And pretty much all the other ones, I think, are pretty unattractive. But the Hawker was a plane that was used in the 1930s by Britain, and they exported some of them. And it has really sleek lines. And here's one with a natural finish. Yugoslavia used some of Royal Yugoslavian Air Forces. Really kind of has some really interesting symbols on it. Really attractive aircraft. Sleek. And the other thing I thought about is this plane that my dad always liked. My dad would have liked to have seen this because the company he worked for in Cuba had one of these planes. And it's called a Beechcraft Staggered Wing. And it was in red. He said it was in red. And they used it to take photographs of surveying from the air. And you can't tell from this picture, but it's actually a pretty large aircraft. And it was built in the 1930s. Did I fix that? No, it had retractable landing gear. Cool plane. And the military even used some of them. There's some I've seen with U.S. Army Air Corps markings. Of course, that's completely unarmed. And sometimes doesn't land so well. But I remember him telling me that the company he had, that he was a partner with or something like that, had one. And when Castro came, they told the pilot, just take the plane and get the fuck out of here. And he doesn't know what happened to the plane. But I'd call the Douglas Downey. I'd call it the Douglas Downey, but I get that'd get me canceled. Every 5 minutes lately, you're getting feed cut by ads. Okay, so all of you guys have subscribed to me before. Is it different than it was, say, 3 months ago? Because I haven't done anything different at all. And as a matter of fact, I do have ads set up, but it's only at the beginning of my feed. It shouldn't be in the middle of the feed. Let me know if it's different, and then maybe when I sign in tomorrow, I'll see if there's something I can do about it. But there's a couple things I mentioned it the other day that that they added onto the display that made it difficult for me to sign in about a week ago. And of course, it was because they screwed with it and added something different. So I don't know if they changed the advertising parameters, but I haven't changed anything on my end. I don't watch anything that has advertising in the middle of it. It just, you lose your spot. So let me know if that's the case, if it's behaving differently than it was, say, 3 months ago or 4 months ago or 6 months ago. This is the first time it's happened. All right, I'm going to write myself a note. So before I go online in the morning, I'll see if I can do something to solve that. Ads driving folks crazy. Okay. I don't know that I can do something about it, but I will see if I can. Yeah, you always got to fuck with things, But that's what happens when you've got some kind of a platform that is technically free. You have to deal with the bullshit that they make you swallow. Just like you don't pay anything for Facebook, but when you use Facebook, you have all kinds of advertising that you don't want to see, and it's products you're not going to. Black details there. And on this haul, let's make sure those same things are covered. We've got this metal bar. Needs to be black. We're going to add some gunmetal type color to it. But we need a black base for that. Yeah, one of my people's favorite ships that they used to do when we used to do naval wargaming in the Pacific for the Japanese is this. They made this light cruiser that they made two of, the Kitakami and the Oi. OI, literally, that's what it's called. And it has 40 torpedo tubes. It has 20 torpedo tubes on each side. That is just unreal. And it's a crowd favorite, because those torpedoes will go out forever. Doesn't mean they're going to hit somebody at really long range, but they can be a threat at extreme ranges. Kitakami class light cruiser. Only made two of them. And they weren't a late war weapon. They were available like at the beginning of the war, or pretty early on. Certainly by Guadalcanal. But those are one of those things, they show up on the battlefield and they just become a target. Like everybody you gotta take those things out before they start being a real problem for everybody. You think it's my connection. I got some drop frame stuff, but I don't have anything else operating. Oh well. My condolences. So we're going to wrap up this, paint a couple of these things black, and then we'll pick it back up in the morning. But man, I had some good times talking to you folks about things I don't normally talk about with this Japanese World War II. I've got a lot left to learn on them, but their best branch by far was the Navy. You start working in the Army, they're like one of you guys said, they're used to fighting people that aren't as good as them, like the Chinese and stuff. But they got mauled badly by the Russians. The only thing that kept them from getting mauled even worse was that, well, they were the Russians. That was even before they attacked Finland, I'm pretty sure. And then tomorrow morning we'll do the black. We'll start with the black lining. Oh, we gotta paint. We gotta paint the jack back here. Let's not forget the old jack. Okay, and with that said, missing the tip of the shovel. The tip of the shovel. All right, and with that, we will pick this back up tomorrow morning. You guys have a good evening, and we'll see some of you in a few hours.